Welcome to Mind Specialists. We are talking about the situation when people feel trapped inside their own mind. And especially if there is a situation when they can't move out, they have to be staying at home, they are in a lockdown, the inability to go for work, the inability to meet other human beings face to face, especially as it is happening now with the coronavirus across the world. This kind of uncertainty in the present can lead to a lot of anxiety about the future, what we call as anticipatory anxiety. It means that people start thinking about what life would be in the future, whether there would be enough money, whether there would be a job, whether the money that they have today will have the same value tomorrow, whether they would be able to meet their loved ones. What if something happens to anyone during this period of time? Will they be able to look after their children's studies? Will they be able to look after their retirement? These are some real questions, and yet there are no answers. So, what do we do in these troubled times when we are going through any kind of anticipatory anxiety? The first thing to remember is that we can only live in the present. To try and project the present into the future or the future into the present is the biggest folly that we do. And we do it often, not only during this time, but we have something called futurizing, which means trying to see what the future will hold, but forgetting that everything can bring along with it uncertainty. And yet, we have the control over it if we start focusing only on the present, because that's where we have the control. So here are some few tips which we can do on a very day-to-day basis with our mind to be able to practice not only for these difficult times, but also so that it becomes a way of living and a way of thinking. First is to try and reduce the infodemic. Too much of information that is coming from all sources at all points of time. The stock markets going down, or the future being predicted to have a downturn in terms of businesses, or that the problem will create difficulty for much larger number of people, or if there are number of cases of coronavirus which increase, then the whole system will be overwhelmed, or there won't be enough medical supplies to be able to help any one of us. We need to remember that these are only general informations, not specific to me. So if I don't listen to all this information overload, I would be only specifically dealing with issues as they relate to me and not as is generalized. So you cut down the total amount of things in your mind that you have to deal with. Start being in the present, the here and now, which means being aware of everything around you. Because mind has a way of switching off from now and going into the future, especially about things which it feels it can not handle or that may go wrong. And there is a purpose for it. The purpose is actually to try and predict events so that you can control it. But we forget often that you cannot control all the events. And that's why it's important that we try to be in the here and now, being in the present, which is also called being mindful. Being mindful means being aware of the sounds, the smells, the sights, the people around, and focusing on what you're doing one thing at a time. By doing that, you're also cutting down your mind into try and going into another thing about the future. Just look at it if you're using a computer or if you're using your cell phone. If you were trying to work on one particular program and then you go on to another program and then you go on to another program, none of the programs you would be able to have a control on. So you can only deal with things one at a time. Learn to do that. There are many times when a mind starts playing games with itself. Negative thinking, when it starts because it is overwhelming, we try and control it, we are not able to control it, we push it further, we try and fight with it, we try to get on top of it, forgetting that it is mind versus mind. It is my own mind versus my own mind. And we have the choice at that point of time to choose the kind of thoughts that we want. So if we choose thoughts which are positive and they are realistic, if we say at this point of time, this is what the situation is, at this point of time, I'm able to focus on things that I'm doing, at this point of time, I'm doing fine, and let me deal with the situations as and when they come in the future, because at that point of time, I would also have more knowledge, more resources, and more ability to choose which direction I want to go. At this point of time, I don't have that ability. And actually, if we think too much about the future, we keep on reaching conclusions. Because of those conclusions, the mind starts becoming very confused after some time because you don't know which one to choose from. And the actuality when it happens would be very different from what decisions I have taken at this point of time in my mind. So let it be in the future. Deal with the situation when it comes. At this point of time, be in the here and now and deal with the situation as is happening only right now. Learning to put full stop, which means that, if we were to make a sentence and after some time, if we were to remove the full stops and the commas, and then maybe if we remove the spaces in between the words, then it will be nothing that will make sense. Things make sense only when we pause, we put a comma, we put a full stop. And when we do that in our own mind as well, then we are able to make sense of all the thoughts that are coming at that point of time. So learning to put a full stop. And one of the easiest way to do it is think of a traffic light. When there is a red, we stop. When there is amber, we start to prepare, and then there is green, and then we go. So if too many thoughts are coming, just visualize as if there is a red traffic light and you need to learn to put a full stop. Another way is what we call as traffic control, which basically means that we learn to control the thoughts for a little while. It may be a minute every hour, it may be a minute every 2 hours, whatever you are comfortable with to begin with, and then increasing that and making it a way of thinking, not only about the present, but especially about the future. Till then, you can stay connected with us through Mind Specialist, through our website www.mindspecialist.com, or our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channels of Mind Specialist. There are many other ways to deal with it, and in our next program and video, we will talk about them one by one so that you stop the anticipatory anxiety for the future and start living in the present.